Okay, guys. Hi. So we're coming back to the second video of heavy, light, medium, and it's kind of just a continuation. Let's quickly review this. So in part one, we sort of reviewed the running it out method where you run everything heavy on one day, everything light on one day, and everything medium on one day. And you grounded it to the floor. You got to week 15 or week 20 and you said, okay, let me test the 1 rep max. And at this point, what do you do next? And one of the things is you kind of have to dig for this information. I kind of wanted to make a part two where we talk about if section one of this video, part one was called running it out. Part two is going to be called the cycling method. And we sort of touched upon this last video where in the cycling method, you no longer just weekly make progression. In this case, you're going to make progression every 3 weeks. And all props to Andy Baker, every single prop to Andy Baker. He has amazing articles on this stuff in his not his YouTube page, actually, on his website. And on his website, you can find all the information you need and continuously is strong. But the thing is, you can't find this in video format, and I kind of wanted to put it in video format for people looking for this information. So let's say you're exiting your heavy, light, medium with new 1 rep maxes for everything you care about, your bench, your press, and your deadlift. Now, we're going to introduce the cycling method, and this is basically for your heavy lift of the day. So remember how originally we had heavy, light, medium for specific days. Here I'm going to start suggesting now you rethink that. No longer have specific days, heavy, light, or medium. Rather, let's split the intensity throughout the week. So for starters, you'll figure something out. So let's say your squat's heavy, light, and medium. Then your bench press could be medium, light, heavy. And then your deadlift could be light, heavy, medium. This is what I mean by split the progress up. In this case, you really don't want to be hitting more than one heavy movement a day. The first movement of every session is going to be a heavy movement. The first and the last movement doesn't really matter. But the first movement you hit on all these days needs to be heavy. So split the load. No longer you'll do a heavy squat every day. So you'll do a heavy squat on Monday, a heavy bench press on Tuesday, and then a heavy deadlift on Friday. See how we split it up? You're no longer hitting everything heavy on one day. It's good for recovery, and it helps you not like die, because what we're about to introduce is kind of insane. So we call it, with that being said, you can pause the video to see that stuff, how you should split it up. That's called splitting up the load. But with that said, here's the cycling method for bench press, overhead press, and your squat. And we'll separate it in weeks because these are weekly loads. So week 1 for your heavy movement on your bench. So your squat, your bench, and your press. This will work for these. I don't suggest doing this for deadlift. You'll see why in a second. So your weekly load, week 1, excuse me, let me delete this. Week 1 for your progression is going to be outlined by this. So week 1, you're going to do a heavy set of 5. And this heavy set of 5 is, let's say, at 80% of your 1 rep max, which is a decent amount of load. But you're going to have back off sets, which are 3 sets of 5 at 75% of your 1 rep max. Now, this is pretty high intensity. As you can see, this is why you're not going to be running for deadlift. So this is your week 1 heavy movement for either one of these movements in any one of those slots in that little matrix looking thing I gave you guys. So this would be your first movement of every one of those days. So for your heavy squat day, this is what you start off with. For your heavy bench day, this is what you start off with. So week 2, we're going to run it up with triples. So we're going to start with a heavy triple at 85% of your 1 rep max. And then 4 sets of 5 at 75% of your 1 rep max. Now, here's the thing. You don't necessarily need to add weight to the bar in order to continuously make gains. Think about it this way. We added a set, so we added more intensity. We added more volume, which adds more strength. That's good. You don't need to add weight. So this 75% and this 75% are the same weight. So this is 320, just for example, this is 320. But this might be 350, and this might be 370. All that changes is that initial heavy set and how many reps you add to the net, or how many sets you add to the 3x5. Now it became a 4x5. Now week 3 here, week 3 becomes kind of cool, in which week 3, you get either a single or a double I prefer singles. I don't really like doubles. I think doubles are pointless. So I do a single at 90% of my 1 rep max. And guess what, guys? You're going to do a 5x5 at 75% of your 1 rep max. And again, this will still be that 320, and this might be 390. That's your weekly progression. Now, watch this. That applies for your squat, bench, or press for your for that said movement. Only these. And for your deadlift, I have a different one for you. Note. So this is 3 weeks. This is 3 weeks of the same progression. So week 4, you could either deload if you really need it, or you restart and go back to week 1. And the only difference is that in week 1, you see everywhere we had a 1 rep max multiplier, you just add 5 pounds to the bar, or less if you have micro plates. So you restart that week, you just cycled it. So week 1, you go back to week 1 and you add 5 pounds. It'll be 355, 325. This will be 375. This will be 325. This will be 395, 325. You added it. Now we're spreading it. It takes longer to progress. It took 3 weeks, but you'll get more gains. You'll extend. You're basically running it out again, but you'll extend the length of how you can run it out. This will last a long time, especially on squat and on bench. Press might get a little iffy. You can just turn it into an accessory movement if you don't really care, or you can just focus only on press if that's what you care about. If it's bench, then it'll last a while too. Now, with that said, let's talk about your deadlift. So for deadlift, that's pretty aggressive, I'd argue. It's very aggressive. And this is all brought to you by Andy Baker. I'm just putting it in the video. Full discretion, I did not make this up. So for your deadlift, you also are going to do a little bit of cycling, but your deadlift cycling is going to be kind of different. It's going to go week 1. You're going to do 3 sets of 8 reps, which is blasphemy, at 75%. No, excuse me, at 70% of your 1 rep max. You're going at week 2, you're going to do 3x5 at 80% of your 1 rep max. And in week 3, you're going to do doubles, 3 doubles. No, excuse me, 2 sets of 3. So 2 sets of 3 of doubles at 90% of your 1 rep max. And in the similar case, the reason this works better for deadlifts than what we have above is because above, you could see it's pretty aggressive. 5x5 plus a really heavy set. It's a lot. And as Ripito or Baker will tell you, deadlifts that heavy are kind of taxing on the body in combination with above. So what you can do is that you can run this for your deadlifts. It's still pretty taxing, but it's nowhere near as amount of work up there. Now, that's what you would do for your heavy day, for your heavy deadlifts. This would be your heavy deadlift progression, your cycle. And it works relatively well. Now, what I do want to start talking about a little bit more is what about your light movements and your medium movements? Before, they used to only be the same movement. You would do 3 regular low bar squats a week. You would do 3 press movements a week. So what changes? So what's going to change is that you're going to replace your light movements with new movements, something to have a little more fun. So for bench and squat. So here's we squat. So your heavy days, obviously low bar squat. So your medium days could be camber squats, SSVs, pause, literally anything that's kind of heavy. Now, for your light days, this is up to you. But you could do Cossack lunges, so a lunge. You could do belt squats if you have access to this. Front squats. And if anything, even leg press. And this is where you can kind of get creative. This light stuff could be a little bit more bodybuilder-esque, and this could be like your 3x10s. This medium stuff, I still kind of think you can go heavy, like camber, SSB, pause. You can do your 4 sets of 5. And that's what you would replace for your squats, for your medium and light days, instead of just repeating the same pattern. Now, for your bench, your medium days could consist of close grip bench, camber bench, incline, and depending on how you want to treat your press, it could even be here. Depending on if you wanted it to be a light day or a heavy day, depending on you. Now, for your light movements, Bench gets a little sticky, but you could always do your press again. And if you really wanted to, you could just bench again. Or you could do high rep, touch and go. Because I expect your medium day to be all pause and your heavy day to be pause work. So touch and go bench. Now your deadlift gets a little iffy. Because your medium days of deadlift could be rows, which really doesn't change from last time. It could be pause deadlifts. It could be, what is it called? Not incline. Why am I? Deficit deadlifts? I'm sorry. And then your light days. Your light days could be cool movements like good mornings. Even rows or other movements that you feel like RDLs. But basically anything you can take for a 3x10. High reps here, really high reps. Get a little bit of bodybuilder in your movement. And then these could be really heavy with 3x5s or 4 sets of 5 across the board. And these movements, since you've never done them before, you can theoretically do a linear progression. You get the novice effect. You've never done these movements, so just add 5 pounds to the bar every week and continuously do that until they stop working for you, or you hit a wall. And if you hit a wall, just replace that movement with another movement you've never done and add 5 pounds until you hit a wall. And then cycle through those and cycle through these cycles and then fill in the gaps to the very beginning of the progression scheme of the heavy light medium to how I had it in the beginning. And you can run this for long-term success. I mean, I ran it for about 6 months. And then once this eventually starts stalling, test your 1 rep max and then do it all over again. It's basically limitless in how long you can run the heavy light medium. So this is called the cycling method, and it for long-term success, and it's not really touched upon in a lot of books. So might as well make a video on it. Anyways, peace.